So for the first 7 days, they had me in they didn't send you to population. It was the county jail. They didn't send you to general population the first 7 days. They had you in a holding unit. So this holding unit consisted of, there were 3 cells with 4 bunks in each cell. And then there was a general population room that had 2 of the metal picnic tables and then had a toilet and a sink. All right. The cells were filled up. Now, in that whole room, there were probably 40 men. It was so crowded that you had to sleep on the picnic table. So you'd have a man on the table itself. You'd have a man on each one of the benches that you sit on. And then in the floor, you had mats in the floor. That's how crowded it was. There's probably 40 people in there. And we were in there. I was in there for over a week until they sent me to general population. And crying every single day. And Brian asked this question. He was like, he pointed out that he had heard that county jail was worse than actual prison. It absolutely is. It absolutely is. You get to the problem with county jail is you get a mixture of different criminals in that environment. And these days they try to separate federal inmates from county inmates or state inmates. And the reason they do that is because you get some guy that comes in, and this is very, very common. You get some cat that comes in and he's been arrested for drunk driving and he's crying. He's or like me. You get some guy that's crying every single day because he may have to serve a few weeks or a couple of months in jail. Meanwhile, you've got a guy that's looking at 30 years. What is that guy that's looking at 30 years is not saying a damn thing, is just sitting there stoic every day? What's he thinking about this son of a bitch over there that's crying every single day that's got to serve 3 months? Well, what happens is he listens to that for so long until his ass gets tired of it. He gets up one day and he beats the shit out of that little crybaby, gives him something to cry about. So, and I saw that. That was very common to see that type of thing. And it's that mixture of inmates that causes the problem. Not only that, but you get people that are coming into county, they're still on drugs, or they've got DTs, they've got withdrawals, and they're seeing snakes under their fucking bed, or ants coming out of their skin, or whatever. You've got that, or bats flying around. Wait till he sees the fucking bats. You've got that kind of stuff going on. So you've got that. You've got the numbnuts. You've got, and I'm going to be plain spoken today. A lot of the people who are arrested. It turns out that law enforcement really likes to arrest African Americans. That's what it turns out. There's a whole ton of them in there. And the reason why, and again, I'm just going to be plainly spoken, the reason why they like to arrest African Americans is because typically an African American, the ones that they're arresting, do not come from well-off families. They do not come from good neighborhoods. They come from places where they cannot afford proper representation. And because of that, it's very easy to get a conviction. They're not educated. They don't have enough money for a lawyer. They get the public pretender. The public pretender, what I saw in Charleston is a lot of the times, even before that individual is arraigned, the public defender comes with a plea offer. You need to sign this or you're going to serve a shitload of time. And they talk that defendant into signing it before they're even arraigned. And that's what happens because the convictions are very easy. Law enforcement's very good about cordoning off neighborhoods, making sure that the crime stays in this ethnic neighborhood instead of bleeding over into, white city. So that's a lot of the crime that happens. And because of that, we see a lot of African Americans that are arrested. Now, a lot of the African Americans that are arrested because, they're committing these crimes, and a lot of the crimes, like in federal prison, a lot of the individuals who are arrested on conspiracy charges, drug-related conspiracy charges, and they're typically charged for what's called ghost dope. So ghost dope, for you to be convicted of a conspiracy charge, it takes 2 individuals to testify that you had those drugs. And here's how that actually works. So what happens is law enforcement picks up some bitch someplace. They get him in the chair. They start asking him questions. Like, we found this drug on you. We're going to give you every single bit of time that we possibly can. We're going to make sure that you rot in prison as long as we possibly can. And meanwhile, that guy's sitting there going, and then they look at him and say, nah, where'd you get those drugs, young man? And if you're in the South, they say it different. Now, where'd you get them drugs, boy? They say it like that. That's right, got the Confederate flag, all that shit hanging on the wall. So they say it like that. Meanwhile, this defendant's like, well, I bought them from Bobby Joe down the street. Well, you did you? Well, how much did you buy from Bobby Joe? Well, I bought an 8-ball a day. For how long did you buy an 8-ball a day? Well, I bought that 8-ball a day probably for a year, maybe 2 years. So you bought an 8-ball a day, 3.5 grams every day for 2 years? Yeah? So that 8-ball a day, 3.5 grams, is multiplied by 365 times 2 is 730. 730. Yeah, 730, whatever that comes up as. All right. That amount of drugs is then charged to the guy that he said he bought it from. If they get 2 people to testify to that, that is a conviction. There doesn't have to be any physical evidence whatsoever to convict that third-party person of conspiracy to traffic in drugs. And you can get 15, 20, 30 years out of that bullshit. That's what's called ghost dope. Turns out there's a lot of people, a lot of African Americans that are convicted on ghost dope. All right. Now, what's the problem with that? Well, I think you can probably see the problem with that. The problem with that is, you get some son of a bitch in the chair that realizes that he's going to serve, maybe 8 or 10 years unless he tells on somebody. Well, am I going to say that I only bought 3.5 grams off of him one time? And I had to really beg him to do that because, this guy's an addict and he doesn't really have much at all. Am I going to say that? Because I won't get any time off if I say that. Or am I going to say that he's a drug kingpin? I bought 3.5 grams every day for 2.5 years. I think I'll go with the latter. That way I won't have to serve any time. Shit, I don't even know that guy that well. He didn't want to sell me the shit to begin with. Fuck him. I want to be a free man. So it's not very reliable testimony, but in federal court, it turns out that it's convictable testimony. So there's a whole ton of people that serve time like that. And a lot of these individuals, they liken themselves to rap artists. So in county jail, you have a whole shit ton of people who think that they are rap artists and they are not. And you've got the metal picnic tables. So what do? They pound out the beats on the metal picnic tables. Boom, chicka, boom, my name is Brett. You can't bet. I don't know what the hell I'm going to say. Whatever that is. All right. That's what happens. I'm white. I can't rap. I had a lyrical mishap. All right. So I'm just saying, that's some of the shit you got to put up with. You have these cats that walk into the county jail and they immediately want to start gambling with people. One of the main rules in prison is don't gamble. Because if you end up owing somebody something and you can't pay them, they are going to beat your ass. I have seen numerous individuals that had the bricks beaten off of them because they owed somebody a honey bun. And a honey bun is a very serious fucking thing in jail. Miss Freshly's Frosted Honey Bun clocks in at 610 calories. How do I know that? Because that's the kind of shit you learn when you're in prison. 610 calories. Now, why do I say that? Because turns out in county jail, the meals are not very good. Often you get this stuff that they call it bologna, and it's this slimy, just horrible looking meat. And then you'll get a slice of bologna, a couple pieces of bread. Maybe you'll get some mayo or mustard spread on that as well. And then you'll have whatever's left. They typically throw you in like two fake Oreo cookies on the tray. Maybe some peas and carrots, mashed potatoes. Sometimes you get a conglomerate of just crap. Typically, I mean, someone who comes to county jail, what you see is and this is one of the interesting things. You see somebody that comes in, you'll know immediately whether the person that comes in has been down, has been in jail or prison before, or if this is their first rodeo. And the reason you'll know that is when food is delivered, the new guys, the ones that have been in trouble for the first time, that they're scared to death, they won't eat. They don't have any appetite. Meanwhile, the people who have been down before, they're sleeping. They're saying, "Hey, you gonna eat that shit? Well, if not, let daddy get it." And at that point, they eat it for you. A lot of the time, but not a lot of the time, but for new guys coming in, you're going to lose a massive amount of weight. With my first 3 months being locked up, because I was that scared, crying bitch, for my first 3 months locked up until the Secret Service got me out so that I could then, rip them off and go on a cross-country crime spree, steal $600,000 in the space of 4 months, wake up one morning on the United States Most Wanted list, go to Disney World, get arrested, sent to prison, escape from prison. For my dumbass, I was that crying guy that didn't eat. And those first 3 months, I think I lost like 37 pounds those first 3 months. And that is not uncommon at all to do that. It's only for the people who know the rodeo, who understand that, hey, I don't care what's on that tray, you had better eat it. For those people, it's a much more not anxiety or stress-ridden experience, all right, because they've been through this bullshit before.